Good day. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the program Newsroom on Canada English. It has taken 7 months for the regime of President Paul Biya to grant lawyers and family members of Ayuk Tabe, Julius Sisiku, and 46 others that were deported from the Federal Republic of Nigeria to Cameroon for the lawyers to meet these Amazonian leaders. They met with them this week. You'll get all the details in this very edition of the program Newsroom. Plus, we shall equally be talking about the Anglophone crisis that is today at the table of a discussion at the U.S. House of Representatives that is in the United States of America. Get all the details in this very edition of the program Newsroom. I am Dominic Nwakimo. Stay with us. Let's get the headlines of what have been making news this week, put together by Regina Like Tada.
Witnesses of the Anglophone crisis solicit the US of A to use her diplomatic prowess at the international scene to press for an investigation of war crimes and those against humanity committed in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. U.S. House of Representatives Committee in charge of Foreign Affairs got first-hand information of the crisis this week. What can be the implication of the meeting in solving the problem? Newsroom panelists give you the detailed analysis in this edition. What has changed since the announcement of government's humanitarian and emergency plan for victims of the Anglophone crisis? Elites of respective regions have been raising millions of francs CFA in a bid to meet the 12.7 billion francs CFA target. As they do so, the situation continues to worsen on the field as the military keep battling against restoration forces, with the population suffering the pains. Cameroon electoral calendar remains a mystery to all except for one person. Government has finally smuggled a bill at the parliament demanding an extension of mandate of MPs. Who stands to benefit here? The party in power, MPs, or the population? What would government do during the extension period to fix things in the country? This is Newsroom, trusted for information flow and analysis.
Thank you so much, Regina Like Tada. Time for us to receive our guest for this edition of the program Newsroom. Let's receive Charles Nana. You are a politician and a crisis and safety expert. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure being in Cameroon and also being within your newsroom.
Now, we welcome you with this question. A TV documentary made public yesterday by RTS television shows names of African leaders that spent huge sum of money in their leisure time in Switzerland, that is in Geneva, Switzerland. The documentary titled Geneva Leisure Center for African Dictators cites several heads of state from the African continent, and most especially President Paul Biya of Cameroon. The journalists report that for 35 years, President Paul Biya has been in power. He has spent a total of 4.5 years in Geneva during his leisure time. What's your rating to this use of taxpayers' money from the African continent by their leaders with a lot of impunity?
Well, when I look at, I think I saw part of that program. I didn't follow it all the way to the end. But I think the very first thing is that we have very weak institutions, right? We have strong men and weak institutions. Meanwhile, it has to be the reverse. We should have strong institutions that put limits on the amount of time our leaders can spend overseas and the time that they have for their vacation. A leader is just like a CEO or the general manager of a company. You have a particular amount of time allocated a year for your vacation. And you cannot, from that report, I believe President Biya they said he spent 4 years out of 35 in Switzerland alone in some of the most expensive hotels. So I think that we we need to make sure that we have institutions and counter balance of power. That's what we need institutions that can check the excesses of any branch of government, be it the legal, the executive, or so I think it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we spend that amount of time, 4 years out of 35, just on vacation.
Maybe you should be talking about the work these institutions are supposed to do, because we have all the institutions. We have the legislative arm, we have the National Assembly, the Senate, we have the Constitutional Council. They are not checking the powers of the president.
Yes, you have the Constitutional Council. What have they done? I think it was just put in place. It's less than a year, if I'm not mistaken. They've not done anything. And but before we even get there, who are the people who have the Constitutional Council? Are those are the best and brightest individuals that are put there? We nominate people for whatever reason, and that is why the country needs to go back to the drawing board. We select some of our best and brightest, diverse set of people and put them on the Constitutional Council. You talk about the assembly. How do we get our folks in the assembly? A lot of them were appointed or nominated or appointed, whatever way they do, and they find themselves there, and they are not accountable to the people that supposed to have elected them. That is why I like to look at it from the perspective that we've made a lot of errors. Cameroon is a young nation. There's no nation on earth that has not made mistakes. Cameroon is a young nation. Let's build our country. We have to go back to the drawing board and build all of our institutions. We need very strong institutions in Cameroon and not strong men in Cameroon.
What can we say these statistics have contributed in retarding the development process of African continent? Because from the documentary indicate that most of those who spend time in Switzerland during their doing nothing but consuming taxpayers' money are leaders from the African continent.
Yes, I watched the program. Let's just take example. Let's just take for someone spending 4 years. I don't know how much money. I don't know if you know how much money was spent. But just say it's $1 billion. It's $1 billion dollars, right? Oh no, billion is too big. Let's say $500 million. What can we do with $500 million in Cameroon? We can create small businesses that some of our brothers and sisters who have picked up arms against the government could be in running small businesses. We could create roads. Here in Douala, there are no roads, let alone in urban areas. With $500,000, we can create hospitals. We have no hospitals in Cameroon. When we are sick, when a French leader or a Francophone is sick, what does he want to do? He wants to run. He rushes to France. If it's an Anglophone who is sick, he rushes to England or United States. We could use that money to build hospitals so that we don't have to go abroad for treatment.
Thank you very much for coming. Time for us to receive Barrister or Senior Barrister Fru John So. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much.
We must really appreciate you.
Even though I'm tired, I made sure that I got here.
You are just coming back from Yaoundé. You have been there since Wednesday last week. You are one of the lead lawyers defending Ayub Tabe Julius and 46 others. You met them in Yaoundé. We have enough time for us to tell us more about their condition and the discussion you had with them. But just to find out from you, the French Secretary of State in charge of Foreign Affairs is presently in the country, Cameroon. He was in the town of Buea in the southwest region of the country yesterday, meeting with authorities to get first-hand information as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. What do you think can be the contribution of France in resolving this issue?
Thank you very much for asking me that question. I don't know whether Cameroon needs the French again, after all what the French and the British have done to us. What is their mission? What is the mission of that minister? What is his mission? His mission cannot be for the Cameroonian people. You may want to know that at the independence of the La République du Cameroun, as it then was, they signed what they call Accord de Coopération. That Accord de Coopération engages only La République du Cameroun as it then was. Now, what are the French after? What are they looking for? Because since that time, Cameroon evolved when the Southern Cameroon joined them. Let them not think that that Accord of Cooperation is applicable to the Southern Cameroons. It is not. I'm talking like a lawyer.
As a lawyer talking.
You cannot sign an agreement with somebody, and when I come into association with that person, you impose it on me. No. Secondly, the French have exploited this country throughout its since independence. They have not done anything that benefits this country but themselves. Cameroon is in a war situation. What do the French want here, now? They have a diplomatic mission in Yaoundé, just like any other country. The United States has a diplomatic mission in Yaoundé. The British have a diplomatic mission in Yaoundé. Is he coming to clean up the mess that they and the British did in Cameroon? That question is blowing in the air. And he went to the extent of going to Boya, and he lived
the
realities of what is happening today in this country. So, what is his mission? I don't want to prejudge the mission that brought him here, but the social media has said so many things, and I'm not going to propagate what the social media is saying, but I'm asking aloud, what is the mission of the French at this time? Where were they at the beginning of this crisis? Where were they? So what are they telling Cameroonians? Maybe you journalists, you know why they were here.
At the end of his visit, we will definitely get a result of why he was here, or why he is here.
But I must tell you that it's offensive to us, the English-speaking Cameroonians. The bare fact that he set foot on that territory, it's offensive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We must assure those that are watching us now that you have a lot to tell us about your meeting with 47 leaders of the Abyssinian Republic detained in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, for 7 months today. Time for us to get what newspapers have been writing about this week, put together by Morindi.
The leader of the Now movement gets a political party to run for the presidential elections. Lady Sahel details that Barrister Keremuna has joined the Popular Development Front Party with headquarters in Gaoundéré. To the party, Gaoundéré has become a fertile ground for new presidential candidates to build their base. To La Météo, the U.S. Embassy in Yaoundé has dismissed accusations that it's sponsoring some opposition political parties in Cameroon. To the paper, reporters that published the information last week failed to demand the embassy's side of the story. The Rambler newspaper writes that government has smuggled a bill in parliament demanding an extension of the mandate of MPs. The paper questions why the executive continued to violate the constitution with impunity. On the same issue, Information writes that councillors and MPs would possibly see their mandates extended by 12 months. The same paper questions equally if Barrister Keremuna can avoid a prison term following a family issue with his kid sister Ama Tutumuna over property left behind by their father. To the paper, the Muna brothers have hired international and national lawyers to defend them. What has become of the Anglophone crisis 1 week after the announcement of an emergency humanitarian plan by the government? The Post newspaper writes that the situation has not improved as many people continue to be killed, property destroyed, and people taken captive. The paper says there have been an increase of prices of foodstuff in Kumba after the Boya-Kumba highway was blocked for several days. Paula Tanganji is an Anglophone problem, a statement from El Haj Lawan Bako, chairman of the UDP party. To the Post newspaper, the politician wants Biya to go in for the 2018 presidential elections, but demands the immediate dismissal of the Minister of Territorial Administration. Bako thinks Paula Tanganji is the genesis of the crisis that is causing havoc. The Star states several instances in the northwest and southwest where blood is being spilled each day, with many on the run. The paper says the killing is both military men and civilians has continued. Zimbabwe's president narrowly escaped an attempt of assassination. The Star writes that Emerson Mnangagwa witnessed a bomb explosion while he was leaving a ceremonial ground in Harare. Despite this, the president insists elections will hold this year.
Thanks, Morindi. We start our first and major topic for this day, talking about leaders of the Ambazonian Republic that finally met with lawyers and equally family members. On the 6th of 2018, the chairman of the Governing Council of the Ambazonian Republic, Ayuk Tabe Julius Siseko, and 46 others were deported from the Federal Republic of Nigeria to Cameroon. Since then, the regime of President Pobia, in 7 months, they have never accepted for these detainees to meet their family members and equally lawyers. But this week, the lawyers were able to meet these detainees. We have one of them here in the studio. We have Barrister Frujon. So thank you once again for coming. We must say we are privileged to have you here today, just coming from Yaoundé. You have not reached your house. Thank you for being here once again. Can you explain to us how lawyers succeeded to meet these detainees?
Before I answer that question, let me make some correction here. Only the 10 leaders are in said. The other 37, we don't know where they are, whether 30 are many, 37. Nobody knows where they are. I want to tell you that we are still building the defense team. And some of us, some of our colleagues, have seen the leaders. They assisted them during interrogation, and the interrogation is still going on. So we'll continue next week. What I can say is that the legal team that has been constituted now, which is not yet complete, does not have any francophone lawyer yet. That's not to say that they will not come in. Because I made this statement because I saw a newsreel on the Kinox when they were interviewing a colleague of mine who is Maitre Asira. And as far as I know, Maitre Asira up to now is not part of that defense team. And I want to say here that he has not seen the leaders. And secondly, Muna up to now do not constitute part of that legal team. That doesn't mean that anybody is excluded. We are still building the legal team. The legal team will be built. When it's built and it's complete, we will make it public. And secondly, we have not, those of us who are already in the legal team, we have not authorized anybody to make a direct statement concerning the defense of the leaders. Because I also heard on that same newsreel yesterday, 6 p.m., that they were pleading that the interrogation should finish quickly and be sent to court, to the military tribunal. Any lawyer who hurries that an investigation should finish and be sent to court is indicating that there's a case to answer by his clients. We of the legal team up to now, we believe that there's no case to answer. And if anybody goes to the press on behalf of the defense team and starts talking about sending the case to the military tribunal, it engages only him and him alone, and we don't take responsibility. Secondly, the procedure has just started. We're at the level of interrogation. From level of interrogation, the file will go to the Commissaire du Gouvernement. And it's only there that determination will be made whether there's a case to answer or not. For a lawyer to stand and say that they should hurry and send the case to the military tribunal, I don't understand that. And who is he? He represents who? Who briefed him And as far as the defense is concerned, and I'm part of that defense team, nobody, including me sitting here, has been authorized to say anything on behalf of the defense.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Many of people that are watching us now, they are tuning in to get the first-hand information from you. You just mentioned something there that we Cameroonians know that 47 leaders were deported from Nigeria to Cameroon.
Yes.
But you mentioned that you made just 10. Where can we see the other 37 have been detained?
That's a question blowing in the air. I don't know. I am telling you the facts, that only 10 that some of us met, and there have been some of us have been assisting them during the interrogation, are found and said. The others, we don't have any information about them. And those 10 are the leaders who were kidnapped and adopted from Naira Hotel in Abuja. Those are the only ones that are said. The others, I don't know where they are.
Barrister, you are a lawyer, not a medical doctor, but when you look at the 10 detainees, what can you say about their health?
You have just answered the question by yourself. I'm not a doctor.
But
if I can answer you, I will say that if you have been held incommunicado for 7 months running and counting, how would you look? How would you look?
I asked this question because
they are living.
Yep.
The good part is that we can now confidently say that they are alive. We can now confidently declare that they are alive. As to their health situation, I cannot tell you what is happening to their health, but seeing them, some have lost weight, some are looking okay, but only doctors can determine that.
Because the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganjo, on several occasions, has mentioned that all the detainees are put on weight, meaning they are living well. Do you contradict such?
I will strongly contradict that man that I don't consider him a minister of this country. Whatever he does, he's a rogue, and he makes declarations that he cannot even sustain them. Those declarations, I've read them, I heard them, and I can tell you that is a devil. It's not a human being. You have not seen anybody and you conclude that they are healthy, they have gained weight, and so on. Where did he see them? And then, unless you're telling me that every day they open the cells and the Tanganji goes in there to find out if his guinea pigs are still alive. Look, I don't like to talk about this man because my partner defended him in this Douala and he was sentenced to prison in New Bed. And I know that this country is bigger than that to have an ex-convict as the Minister of Interior.
Barrister, we are not talking about.
Well, yeah. I don't want to get into that debate.
I'll permit other panelists to react, but just to find out from you after the meeting with this 10 detainees. That is
I said some of us met.
Some of you met.
Yes.
Now, what should be the
particularly
next step?
our colleagues in Yaoundé.
Yeah. What is the next step after?
The next step is that when they finish the interrogation, which will take another 2 or 3 weeks, because we are back to Yaoundé next week. We will take another. Our colleagues, the Yaoundé colleagues, are on the ground.
Okay.
And when they finish the interrogation, the next step is that the file goes to the Commissaire du Gouvernement, who will make a determination whether there's a case to answer or not. Okay. Until then, nobody is allowed to make a statement on behalf of the defense.
Thank you very much. Taiva Elvis, thank you for coming. Yeah. You just listened to Barrister there talking about those that have been detained. Out of the 47 that we know, the lawyers, they were able to meet just 10. As a journalist and a political analyst too, what can we say is about the whereabouts of the 37 others?
Well, I think it's a good question you are asking. but the first thing we should understand is that when procedures are engaged wrongly, then we start asking questions whether we are actually in a country full of rule of law. Because first, holding somebody for months incommunicado is not, first of all, very normal. I'm sure the lawyers understand what I'm talking about.
Of course.
And so when you hold somebody, and whether he's guilty or not, at least he should be given that possibility of getting his defense counsel to know how to put him through. That's why lawyers are there. Because if you, as a civilian like myself, will not know how to go about, your defense counsel will be there to guide you so that you come out of it to show how you are innocent. Now, when we first of all discover that people are arrested, months are passing by, people are commenting and nothing is happening, there is something wrong with this country. That's why I keep on saying that the Minister of Justice, the Justice Department needs to sit up. Because we are trying to make sure that Cameroon should have a good image, but others are trying to dampen it. Now, imagine that people from the Transparency International is there, Amnesty International is there. When they get this kind of report, what makes of it? So, from what Barrister is saying, first we'll be thanking their team because they've gone a long way to at least relieve people from the stress, because there were many stories, some had died, this and that. But then it still does not suffice because the wrong procedure has been engaged. And when you engage a wrong procedure, it is for the state itself to come back to correct it. If we are talking in a country where there's a rule of law, and a country where things are politically upright, the leaders concerned with that department are supposed to have resigned as I speak. Meaning that you are talking of the country where we call it a country, leaders who was at the Justice Department is supposed to have resigned. Who is at the Defense Council, or maybe at the level of the Defense Military or Defense Security Department, is supposed to have resigned. Because when wrong procedures are put in place, they jeopardize the name of the country outside world in terms of diplomacy. Because I don't think when you be going out, lawyers have come in, they have been trying to know where they are. I've been walking on the ground trying to see exactly, but what could this be? And so some persons are found, some are not found. It's still very, very abnormal. This is a slap on the legal department in Cameroon. It's a slap on the side of the lawyers, whatever. That's why I said earlier that in a country where we're preaching unity, this is not supposed to be an issue, because this is supposed to be an issue meant for some. Like Barrister has said, this is the time we are supposed to get refined lawyers in this country, approached the Defense Council already on board to seek ways of joining them. I mean, because there are procedures. Not everybody just come and say, we want to join. Because if they do that, it means that first, they are doing the right thing as lawyers. But the error we have is that, which I have been worried. I'm talking to lawyers who are here because they hear me. My first worry was that when these guys were held incommunicado, lawyers kept quiet. Few of them were trying to, few of them were trying to make some moves. But I'll say that as time went on, we were expecting the Bar Council in general, the Bar Council to have made an outright move, pressing hard on the government officially, not underground. Underground has another way of working. Now, we did not get that. So people like us who were at the level of the communication department were finding it difficult because communication was not flowing somewhere along the line. And we started asking, but if one could be held incommunicado, and we have an entire bar, I'm not talking about English lawyers. This is an aspect of humanity. And as Cameroonians, it should not be something of maybe some common lawyers, maybe coming into complaint. It should be something of lawyer bar association in general. If they have lodged a good complaint against the government, pressurizing the government, I'm sure it must have gone further than the way it is, because Barrister's team is on board. Some persons are missing. It still means that lawyers have a lot of work to do.
Sure, a lot of work to do because they have just begun. Yeah. Mr. Charles Nana, we are talking about a case where 47 people have been held under custody for 7 months without any communication, neither with their lawyers nor family members. But to the Minister of Territorial Administration, he mentioned that the lawyers or the leaders of the Amazonian Republic are detained for their own security. To Paul Atanganji, if they are released, the population of Cameroon will lynch them to death for inciting violence in the northwestern. Does that justify keeping them without for 7 months without communicating with their lawyers and family members?
That's absolutely well. Let me put it this way. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. The first thing is that permitted in the civil law or is it permitted in the common law? my limited knowledge in law, that's unacceptable. And it's very provocative for the Minister of Territorial Administration to say they're keeping those guys incommunicado for their own safety. Then number two, after keeping them incommunicado for 7 months, what is the quality of interrogation you get out of someone that you've kept in a cell for 7 months? we have to be serious, right? If we say this, Mr. Nana is guilty of XYZ offense, I should be interrogated immediately when my brain is still fresh on some of the activities. But you keep them in 7 months within a small wall can do so many things to different people. So it's most unfortunate, but I am not even there in my thought process. We all as a nation have made a lot of mistakes. That's why I continue pounding on it. We need to declare a ceasefire, issue a period of national reconciliation, and stop all this nonsense about taking these guys to court. The country says we need peace, we want peace, and for peace to reign, we want to make sure that all the children, we first acknowledge that we have made mistakes. We want to fix it. Every country makes mistakes. Bring the leaders on the table for a 2 to 3 phase negotiation. And some of these guys should be on that table. So it's very unfortunate, really unfortunate, that it's an Anglophone that seems to be the one that's most provocative to Anglophone, to the Anglophone cause. It's really most unfortunate. That should not happen, but that is what it is. That is the situation. Sometimes we have to take situations the way they come to us. But I think cooler head should prevail. The head of state should see what is happening on the ground. The future of Cameroon, our children are dying on the field, be it military folks, those in the bushes, we need to stop it. Those are our future. We need to come to the table, accept we've made mistakes, and negotiate. Such that every child, I want to make sure that's the last, I'll end here by saying, such that every child of this nation should feel that they are part of the governance of Cameroon.
Barrister Anso, you met 10 of those detained. What is their perception as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned, 7 months after they have been under detention?
I am not here to divulge anything that an accused person will say or has to say. What I'm here to say is that the leaders are alive. A defense is being constituted, and this is, let me underscore what I said. No lawyer, no lawyer, because the members of that defense team are known. For now, the ones that are on now, but we're still building it, no lawyer out of that team is authorized to make any declaration on behalf of the defense to the press. I am making this, I am sending this out so that all lawyers in Cameroon should hear me. That defense is still being constituted, and nobody is allowed to say anything about that defense. Therefore, I'm not going to answer any question as to whether what are the accused person saying, what is this person saying. No, because I now form part of the defense team.
Okay, thank you very much. The lawyers have been able to meet some of those detained. What can you tell us about family members? Have they been able to meet
some family members have met some of the detainees. Yes.
People would like to know more about perhaps their feeding, how they fed, something like that.
From information that we got, they are being fed. The quality of feeding, we don't know, but they are being fed. Just like any prisoners have been fed in New Bell. What do you expect? If they bring you corn and beans, you will refuse to eat and die? Because since for 7 months, no family member has been able to give them something good to eat. I cannot say that what they are giving them is bad. Neither can I say it's good because I don't know.
Not tested.
I've not tested.
Okay. Now, given that the family members have been able to meet them now, would they be permitted to give them foods, perhaps?
No, not for now, not yet. But I suppose that as the time goes on, there will be. Since the defense is being constituted, that is one of the things we'll be taking up. The family members must be allowed somehow, since they are not yet sentenced, to take care of their people who are in detention.
Thank you very much. We guess.
And I like to say that from the reports we got, I've told you that some of us have met all of them. I'm not going to tell you whether I was part of them or not.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that some of us have met part of them. And from what we know, our leader is in good spirit and is fine. But only a doctor can determine that.
Only a doctor. But earlier on, when we were discussing before coming on, you mentioned something about when you met them, their dressing.
I will not discuss that.
Okay.
It is against the law to discuss anything about them.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Time for Elvis, from the meeting now, what should Cameroonians expect?
Well, one thing is for sure, Cameroonians should be able to expect justice, the justice which we are seeing it being tempered with already, because I see justice already being tempered, and of course they say justice delayed is justice denied. And so if for 7 months people have a case and the state sees that they are found wanting somewhere, I don't know what state security measures were put in place and what judicial procedure warrants that they should be kept incommunicado for all this while. And then now we have another 3 weeks again that has to run for preliminary investigations before we start knowing whether the case will be taken to court or be thrown out or all the like. So it's a slap on our Justice Department, which we appreciate what the Justice Department is doing. But when we see our own government itself, creating these loopholes, we begin to ask questions whether is there really rule of law? Because each time we say we're talking about justice, we say Cameroon is a state of rule of law, but these things make us to start doubting. It means that tomorrow I can be picked up from here as I'm talking, and the next thing is that I can even be silenced, because if we're not seeing the others, we are not saying that maybe the state has kept them for a particular reason, but we are saying that once you keep them for a particular reason, which is not legal or is not enshrined in the Constitution, it means you are violating the Constitution itself, which is already a criminal offense. So if we are talking here, we're talking about what the state should do or what people are expecting. We expect justice, because for any action or any reaction that is caused by an action and vice versa, if people went to the level where they went to, it means something must have cost them. And so if we are looking at it critically, we'll be asking ourselves, well, what caused us to be where we are now? Because this is not where we would have been alone. And so because wrong persons were put at the wrong place, they could not handle the crisis at the initial stage, and we see the errors being caused continuously, implying that there is no even iota of those at the helm of the state willing to even solve it. It means that we are appealing that the head of state, President Pobia, should do something. First, I'm saying the entourage around him appears not to be serious people, because if we have statements like this coming from people who understand the Anglo-Saxon area, it's a call for concern. I mean, when you watch, you come on Canal D and other TV organs here in Douala, you see the way Francophones are even talking about the problem, which means most of them even master the crisis than us. And so if somebody who is not wearing our shoes understands the pain and talks for us, how about us who wear the shoes? It means something is virtually wrong somewhere. I think it's high time the head of state sits up and knows that those who sing songs around him, if they are singing the song wrongly, they should be corrected and get the right persons who will give the right results to the head of state.
Charles Nana, you are a crisis and a safety experts. The lawyers have been able to meet ambassador leaders after 7 months. They are meeting them in the week when the French Secretary of State is presently in the country. Can we say this is a program coincidence?
Of course, it's all its plans, right? There's a lot of international pressure and internal pressure. The French are not here for nothing. But we just have to be, I would like to take 2 steps back. The question we as Cameroonians have to ask is, can the French bring any solution to the Cameroonian crisis? But we cannot forget that they are part of the problem.
Yep.
If you look at, let's go back to 1961. During the negotiation, Foncha, again, that's why I like to move forward. But let's take 2 steps back. In 1961, Foncha and his team went to the formal negotiation unprepared. But who did they meet? They met the French and Aïdjo. When you went to 72, before Aïdjo changed the constitution from the Federal Republic to the United Republic, he was being advised by French legal experts. And then even the constitution that was written in 1961 was left vague by the French. I read one of the reports that was released of the French ambassador discussing or expressing how the Anglophones, Southern Cameroon, and the central government could not even agree on the writing on the constitution. They cannot agree on the powers that was allowed to the executive and the powers that was allowed to the local region. That is why Cameroon needs to go back to the drawing board. We made a lot of mistakes. I can accept it. Our parent generation, they did the best they could. We have experts now. We have people who understand this stuff. We have people that is what they do for a living. Let's go back to the drawing board, review our constitution, draft one that there is no ambiguity on who has what powers and how our various branches of government, that there's a clear separation of power. Because if in the 1961 constitution, you can see how it moved from separation of power to a unitary state that pretty much the president was almost had all the powers. It became a heavily presidential regime where everything, and you see that in a lot of French African countries, everything is designed around the president. So if the president does not like Achu, anybody who talks about Achu is either arrested or thrown in jail. And it shouldn't be that way. So our parents' generation, I like to move forward and say, we made many mistakes. Bring your children to the table. Let's sit down, start from scratch, and make Cameroon.
So what can we say explains the presence of the French Secretary of State in charge of African affairs or foreign affairs? He's present in Buea this week.
I think his presence in Buea was a little bit provocative.
Exactly.
I just hope that...
And offensive.
And offensive, correct.
Offensive and provocative. And I just hope that, and that is why we say in crisis management, I don't know who are those advising our leaders, because the Southern Cameroons or the Anglophone, the Northern and Southwest, they put a significant portion of their blame on the French. Number two, they have no relationship with the French. Number three, the accord that the French signed with La République du Cameroon in 1959 has no bearing to Anglophones, but it has been imposed on Anglophones for quite a while. So for the French ambassador, who is the flag bearer of some of the issues that Anglophones are saying, we were two territories, we were two brothers who had different histories. We agreed to leave our colonial past behind and form a Cameroonian identity. Not a French identity, but a Cameroonian identity. And a Cameroonian identity is an identity which is Francophone and Anglophone. But that is not what we got. And that is why, if the French ambassador goes all the way to Buea, it's as if we call it...
French minister, please.
I'm sorry, the
French Secretary of State in charge of foreign affairs.
Going all the way to Buea is a little bit provocative, especially how did he drive into Buea or did he drive out of Buea? I'm hearing reports that he was airlifted.
He drove in and he was airlifted.
Okay, so he drove in and he was airlifted out of Buea. That explains what was happening in the area. So I just think that we should be a little bit wise. We need to calm things down instead of aggravating or making people
funny tension. Barrister, Mr. Nana just mentioned something there that France is part of the problem in Cameroon today. Many people will think that France needs to be part of the solution too.
I disagree, but let me say this. Given the present situation, I have said and I will continue to say that the only thing that can get us out of here is a negotiation. The French have messed us up, the British have messed us up. Now we are at a war situation. How do we get out? We must, first of all, like Charles said, ceasefire. Unilateral ceasefire by this government, because they declared the war. They started the war. Even after massacring our children in Buea on the 22nd and of September and 1st of October, in both in Buea and Bamenda, they continued shooting and maiming our children. So, what happened? Just because these young people now said that if we don't do anything, they will exterminate us. So they decided to put up a defense to defend themselves. The head of state, and the result was 5 gendarmes down. The head of state comes to the airport and declares war on Anglophones. That war is being fought right now. Right now. The only way out is negotiations with the Anglophones. I have heard so many people say, who are Anglophones? We negotiate with who? And so on. Let me inform the public that Anglophones now have the interim government. Whether we like it or not, they have an interim government of Ambazonia that they control the northwest and southwest now that we're talking. Any political observer will see that. And if you negotiate with any other Anglophone on the ground here without them, you will not even go one meter. So let's get on the negotiating table, and before we can start talking about whether we are going to continue this union or we are parting ways. That is the only solution. I want to react to what my friend Charles just said. There are no institutions in this country like we'll have in organized societies like the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. We have one institution, the President of the Republic. He controls everybody. He controls his executive, he controls the legislature, he controls the judiciary. So, my good friend, I thank you for bringing that up, that you need strong institutions, but for now, we don't have it.
We have strong.
After the negotiations and we decide to stay together, those institutions, Cameroonians, because I know there are people of goodwill in this country, they will build solid institutions that this country deserves. That is if we are staying together. If we don't stay together, we hope that our brothers will build institutions that they deserve, so that we'll build our own too. That is the way this thing is as of now. I thank you.
We continue in the same vein. We talk about the Anglophone crisis. Now at the table of the U.S. House of Representatives, we try to analyze what can come out of this. Wednesday, the 27th of June 2018, the U.S. House of Representatives Committee in charge of Foreign Affairs listened to first-hand testimonies on the Anglophone crisis that began since 2016. The meeting was presided over by Christopher Smith. He is the chairperson of that committee. Ambazonia leaders that explained the crisis in Cameroon called on the U.S. to use her powers to influence for an investigation to be carried out for war crimes and those against humanity committed in the northwest and the southwest region of the country. Let me start with you, Charles Nana. You are coming from USA. You spend a lot of time there. You have been a politician there,
yes,
meaning you master the institutions in USA.
It's a moving library.
Sure. you equally mentioned that you equally ran for the post of a senator in USA, meaning that you have a lot of knowledge. Now, when an issue finally gets to the table of the U.S. House of Representatives, what does that mean?
Well, it means it's an important issue. But remember, the Cameroonian issue is no longer an internal issue of Cameroon. It threatens the security of the entire region. 20 to 25% of the oil that is imported in the United States come from the Gulf of Guinea.
Correct.
So when the strategic interests of superpowers are threatened, they have to react. They have to take action. So that is why it's of primary interest for them to make sure that the Gulf of Guinea stays stable.
So are they reacting for selfish reasons?
Well, I wouldn't say for selfish reasons, but of course, every country, the first thing they do is their interest. I have asked this, and I mentioned this last time when I was here. It was best said by President Reagan. The United States would do what is the best interest of the United States. The question again is, are Cameroonians and Africans doing what is in the best interest of Cameroonians and Africans? The congressmen, I followed the briefing very, very closely. They have three questions, and it kept coming. What is the role of the United States so far in the Anglophone crisis? That's the first thing. And the ambassador, no, I think it's Ambassador Nwakimo, could not give a good answer. He said he wants to go into private briefing. That means that there are certain things he doesn't want to say in the open air, right? He doesn't want to say in the open.
Correct.
So it's not a good sign. Now, then they came back, a second question they asked was, what is the role of the colonial master? They asked what's the role of France and the role of the UK in the crisis. They posed that question to because you had two sets of people there. You had the first group, Nwakimo, he's a representative of the State Department. So it's a very, very independent viewpoint. And it was very insightful hearing some of the things that's happening in Cameroon and their view and how they're taking it. Then you had a second set of panel that had two Cameroonians and one Ghanaian. Right? There was a Francophone Cameroonian, and then there was an Anglophone Cameroonian who spoke a lot from the Amazonian standpoint. And the three things, let me put it this way, there were three things that the panel was asking, especially the Amazonian leaders. They urged the U.S. government to condition its military support to the Cameroonian government. Their idea was they should pressure the Cameroonian government to redeploy troops from the northwest and southwest to the north to fight Boko Haram, which to a certain extent I agree, because we're asking for a ceasefire, we want an immediate ceasefire. Those troops can go to the north. The second, they are asking the United States to initiate an international commission of inquiry on human rights abuses
in the northwest and
southwest.
southwest.
The northwest and southwest. And again, as we know, it occurred on both sides. That's why I want to move forward with. I don't like. Then the third is they want to call for an international mediation. But again, we don't need international folks to help us to mediate. We have Cameroonian experts who are respected on both sides of the conflict. So we don't need an American to come and tell. We have Cameroonians who are equally as good. Some of us went to the same schools, did better than some of them. Why do we think that they can negotiate or they can mediate something that we understand better than they do? But again, our people prefer Europeans and expatriates to do those things. But again, we have Cameroonian. But last but not least, and I cannot forget this point, the Amazonian leader, I don't know where he came, but he doesn't have his facts right. He said 95% of Cameroonians want independent, of Anglophones want independent, and that's very wrong. So I wanted to make sure that that fact gets stipulated. I think he had his figures reversed, right? Yes, when the crisis started, maybe you had one or two people who wanted separation. But now maybe it has gone up to maybe 5%. But he cannot be saying 95% of Cameroonians want to separate.
And many people too will not accept their figures. Time for us to watch this report put together by Regional Leke Tadat, talking about the meeting between Amazonian leaders and the congressmen in the United States of America.
The hall was jammed to capacity on Wednesday as the U.S. Congress Committee of Foreign Affairs opened hearing on human rights abuses in Anglophone Cameroon.
For the delay, we had 4 votes. I do apologize. Mr. Tembum, the floor is yours.
Mr. Effie Tembum, one of the speakers, urged the U.S. to set up a commission of inquiry.
And we urge for an international commission of inquiry to fully investigate the crimes against humanity and bring perpetrators to justice. And let the United States call for an international mediation to resolve the crisis going on in southern Cameroon to prevent further atrocities and genocide.
With regards to the way forward in resolving the Anglophone crisis, the speaker gave certain preconditions.
And for these negotiations to be effective, we believe the following conditions must be met. All those arrested in connection with the crisis must first be released. Talks should take place in a neutral venue. The mediator must be acceptable to both sides, and negotiations must include addressing the root causes of the crisis and self-determination for the people of former British Southern Cameroons in accordance with UN Declaration of Granting Independence of Colonial Countries.
Equally lamented on war crimes ongoing in southern Cameroon.
There are horrific crimes going on, committed every single day by soldiers, government soldiers, against civilian population in the regions, in the Anglophone regions in southern Cameroon. And I believe these crimes amount to war crimes or crimes against humanity. Soldiers go into villages, burn down villages, even burn people, elderly people in their homes who cannot escape. And it's heartbreaking to see what's going on. We work in communities across this region. We have staff on the ground, and every single day I get stories. I see pictures of homes burned, of people killed.
Mr. Efi Tembong blamed the current situation on historical mistakes.
Southern Cameroon leaders, when they went to the UN because they were going to get independence, the United Nations violated one of its resolutions by not accepting the desire of the people to become an independent country. They rather conditioned their independence by joining either Nigeria or Cameroon.
The historical mistakes, according to him, further got worse when crude oil was discovered in the then West Cameroon.
When oil was found in southern Cameroon, so former southern Cameroons, the state of West Cameroon was dissolved. It was dissolved, and they had elected their leaders. The prime minister role was dissolved. The house was dissolved, and the President Ahijo would send in governors. The state was divided into two, and governors were sent in to govern the people, local administrators who had no accountability to the local people. They were accountable to the central administration. And that's when the trouble started in 1972. And for Southern Cameroonians, it was recolonization or annexation.
He further added that armed groups developed because people sought to protect themselves from military brutality.
People were running into the bushes. The young people ran and hid in the bushes because they realized they were being killed, and even in the bushes. And they realized if they didn't defend themselves, they'll be killed like chickens. And so they started to look for arms. There were groups that were, some joined groups, some formed small groups, defense groups in their communities, and got hunting guns to fight back. And when they ambush a soldier and kill a soldier, government troops come into the area because they know the local population supports these groups. They burn down villages. I've seen people who have been burned, people burned in their homes, shot, their mass graves, and this is going on every single day. If this is not genocide.
During the hearing, a written statement by human rights lawyer Felix Agwonkongo detailing the root causes of the Anglophone crisis was equally read out. Cameroon-born writer based in the U.S. Patrice Ngangnang and sympathizer of the Anglophone cause Molanjo Litumbe and a host of other Cameroonians were equally in attendance.
Thank you very much, Regional Liki Tanda. Barrister, you just listened to the report there, how Masuna leaders met with congressmen in USA. What's your reaction to that?
The last speaker on that video said it all. But before I want to react to what my friend Charles has just said. If I was sitting on that panel, I would talk of 99%. And if you doubt me, there's only one way to find out. The UN organizes a referendum to find out whether, how many of us still want to stay in this union, Charles? You said 95% was too much. You thought that it was reverse, it was then 5%. Well, I will not even dispute your figures because me and you would not have concrete figures. The only way to have those figures is a referendum. Having listened to all this, and I know the United States government is a serious government. Like Charles said, they have an interest to protect. If they didn't have an interest here, they will have another interest, which is human rights to protect. And that is where I also agree with Charles that there were violations on both sides. Let me ask, if you declare war on me and you have a massive war machine and I'm with empty hands, I use every means that I can to defend myself. The issue of self-defense is recognized in international law. It's actually a basic, a fundamental right to defend yourself. I'll give you just a small example. If somebody breaks into your home, Charles, and attacks your wife and children, you have the means, whatever means you can find, you will fight to protect your families. And that is exactly what is happening here. Let me finish.
Briefly.
When you were talking, I was listening. Yeah. Let me finish. The war. I just said it. I don't want to repeat myself. Who started killing who? The government takes upon itself to massacre its own children. Kept killing, kept maiming, going to homes, breaking into homes and removing young men and shooting their legs and maiming them. What did you expect? People ran to the bushes to protect themselves. They organized themselves. When this war started, Charles, if you followed it, you will find out that the boys didn't even have guns. They had machetes. From machetes, they went to den guns. That me and you were from Grafil, and they shoot Chachum during that celebration. That's what they started using. Now they might have developed into, the world is watching. At any conflict, the world is there to sell the arms. Now they're developing better arms to fight. That's why this fight is raging on. The idea of Mr. Biya was to go to the Southwest, starting with Mathe, to eliminate everybody in the next 1 or 2 days and quell the rebellion, like they did with Basas and Bamileke people in those days, and the matter will end. But it didn't happen that way. So, Charles, the solution is a referendum. If you doubt that the Northwest and Southwest is not ready to leave,
no, okay.
I don't think we will get to that. No, let me finish. I don't think we will get to that, because I am not prejudging. When you are going to negotiations, you don't prejudge.
Go with a neutral mind.
Yeah, go with a frame mind. Yeah. The negotiators will come up with what all of us will accept. But let me say this: the mediator cannot come from Cameroon. Let me tell you why. All of us are polarized, including me and you sitting here. We are polarized. So I also don't want a white man sitting on that mediation table. We have prominent Africans, Charles, prominent ones. We have Kofi Annan, we have Professor Lumumba, I will exclude Nigeria, because Nigeria has played a nasty role in this event, in this fight. Nigeria, no matter who, will not accept anybody from Nigeria. But all the other African countries, all, without exception, will have prominent people. Both in the English-speaking countries of Africa and the French-speaking countries of Africa, we have prominent Africans who can be chosen to be on mediators on this matter.
Let me just, I have to respond a little bit.
Just briefly.
Yes. Two things. You posed many questions, but I want to go one at a time. The very first one, you talk, if someone breaks into your home and attacks you, from the civil law, there's something called the castle doctrine, right? So you have a right to defend your home.
Exactly.
So it can be extended to a self-defense. But the issue is...
But the self-defense international law.
Of course, it's a fundamental right, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So again, I'm not contesting there. The point I wanted to make is, we should not, if we want to go out as credible individuals, we're going to international bodies and we're talking about the state of affairs, throwing a 95% number, it discredits you. But that's not where my debate is. My position has always been this: we've made mistakes. Both sides have made tremendous mistakes, but we should be humble enough and say we are brothers. First, there were excesses from the government. The government has to say our military has been a little bit undisciplined, and they have caused some atrocities. Those in the bushes have also said we pick up arms against the state authority, which is unacceptable. And then,
what about self-defense?
Well, again, I said you have a right to self-defense. I don't disagree with the right to self-defense. But bottom line, I'm trying as hard as I can not to throw blames. I'm trying to say, let's agree we all make mistakes, because brothers do make mistakes. Come to the table and said, and our mistakes don't start today. It goes all the way back to 1961. Let's build a new Cameroon. Let's bring our children or experts or whatever we want to build a Cameroon that will be a reflection of our desire. What was the desire of our parents in 1961 and 50 something when Cameroon was being arbitrarily divided to the French and the English? Is that we'll one day create a federated Cameroon that every single child will feel part of its governance. Today we do not feel part of the governance of this country.
Okay, let's permit Taifa Elvis react to this. The demand of the Ambazonian leaders. One of their demands is for U.S. to use her powers to influence international investigation of war crimes and those against humanity committed in the northwest and the southwest by the regime of President Pobia. What are some of the factors do you think will urge USA to go into such an exercise?
Well, first to tell I always like to look at it at the political standpoint of view, analyzing it in a political manner. And so if you look at it first, just before I come to that, to what Charles just said some few minutes ago. Now, when you look at, I am talking like somebody who works on the ground. I've been investigating the crisis. I've been at the war-torn area. I've been working between Northwest and Southwest for over 2 years now. And so I talk with facts that I have.
Yeah.
Now, when we say 95% are not demanding for independence, is the other way around, I say it's a big error. I've gone to the communities, and as the burning continues, the more they are clamoring for independence. I repeat, the more they clamor for independence, the more the burning and the military brutality continues. I am talking as somebody who works on the ground 24/24. Now, it means that I tie down to what Barrister said. If you organize a referendum now, you'll be surprised that those Anglophone elites in Yaoundé will be shocked at the result. Because for the few who are thinking that the Ambazonian issue is not an issue of independence, it's because they are daydreaming. Why? Because they are reaping some benefit from Yaoundé.
Correct.
And so they keep on sending wrong signals to President Paul Biya that everything is well, we are in control and all the like. It is a big lie. That's the more reason why I will always be categorical, because I like facts. Most of them who come on the ground, the ministers, the elites, don't give the right facts. Because before they come, some few persons who eat in the government have been gathered. When they come and make some small noise, give some small monies, 1,000, 2,000 people, the media, state media comes in, blows it over as it's all is well. Just as I've said, and as Barrister has said, if you organize a referendum now as we speak, people will not believe the results. They will not believe, because it is this issue, it is just few elites who eat in Yaoundé, fact, who keep on wanting things to drag the way it is. Therefore, coming back to the issue we're talking here, United States has an interest. First, analyzing it politically. That's why I tell people most of the times that Donald Trump is one of my best presidents. I don't mix words. Because his foreign policy is up to date. What is his foreign policy? The policy of America first. And for America to be first, it must be secure. Now, if you look, though he has been in America, majority of the crimes, over 75% of the crimes committed in America is carried out by foreigners. Those who are illegal immigrants. Because they are fighting to survive, some are forced to enter into banditry, some are forced to carry out drugs smuggling.
I think I need to interject.
Permit him to.
Now I'm talking with facts.
Okay.
I'm talking with facts.
Okay.
If you enter America, if he has been to America, he's not supporting the fact. He has his opinion, you understand? But I'm surprised. Because in America, I have studied Donald Trump's foreign policy. That's why Trump said clearly many times, if you see him calling Africa shithole country, people were angry. I said, no, don't be angry. Donald Trump is sending a message to African leaders.
Oh yes, we are shithole country.
Because Donald Trump's policy is that the more African leaders continue to make the people live in misery, the more these people will be fighting to enter America illegally, and the more they'll be constituting the crime squad in America, thereby costing America huge sums of money in terms of internal security. That is the reason why Donald Trump is cheering a move to make sure that those African leaders who have stayed long in power and those who are dictators should be removed through various means, because there are various means. It must not be up war fronts.
Of course.
War fronts. So that is the policy in it. If you look at it in the immigrants, even I have friends who are in America there, we talk about drugs and all the like. Mexico, we have drugs being smuggled, and other areas from other parts of the world. Why? Most of those people that you find there, when they come in and things are getting hard and they need to survive, they get into crimes. And this crime is keeping America uncomfortable. Therefore, Congress has an interest in the sense that if the African countries are up to date, and it cannot come so suddenly, those when you hear the Congress listening to that, of course, America is a well-organized society. What the Congress will send to Trump, to the presidency, to the White House, is what the White House will consider.
Of course.
Because it is an organized system whereby they believe on the Congress, because the Congress works with the grassroots.
Yes.
So that when that change comes over and is going up to the White House, they begin to commission the Secretary of State for African Affairs and other like to begin to implement measures.
Okay.
Just as he rightly said, there is an interest in the Gulf of Guinea as far as oil is concerned, which is true. And so, international politics is an aspect of interest. If my interest is jeopardized, I either come in directly or indirectly. What America is doing now is coming into African countries indirectly. In the case where the African countries become stubborn, there are other stages where when it gets to a point, they cannot take direct measures.
Thank you for
economic embargoes and some other things.
Thank you for your analysis.
Correct.
Mr. Nana, you would like to react?
Yes, it's very, very important because so your viewers get the big picture. Number one is it's garbage saying 75% of crimes committed in the United States are committed by foreigners. That's total garbage.
Yes,
that is not true.
I agree with you, Charles.
So that is the type of, you see, in Cameroon we like to just throw numbers, and that is why I told you before, I don't throw numbers because I work with numbers and I like to be very clear. Two things. And crime in the United States have been dropping significantly way before even Donald Trump came.
Let's not talk about United States per se, but
the last one I want to make
United States in connection to the Anglophone crisis.
Okay.
That's what we're
with the
talking about
Anglophone
now.
crisis,
Yeah.
he's very correct. The community, the Anglophones, are getting more radicalized due to the brutality of the government. The way when the government goes and they do a lot, they have a lot of excesses. Both sides are getting more radical. And that's my fear, that both sides are getting more radical. That even a negotiation, if it's not well done, we might be in this for a very long time. So, the only point I wanted to make on that 95% that the number was wrong, maybe it should have been reversed, but somewhere in between, right? But we should not go to places where we expect credibility, credible men, responsible men, and they are throwing numbers. 95% is a lot. It's a lot. So we have to just be very careful. That's all.
Can I react to?
Briefly.
Yes, I'll briefly react by saying that I agree with Charles that crime rate that you said, foreigners don't commit crimes in the United States as you think.
I can prove it.
Americans
we don't have time. If we have time,
but we're not here for that.
Yeah.
But let me say this. I want to ask Charles, have you seen those gruesome pictures of the soldiers torturing those girls in mud?
At the University of Boya.
No.
And equally in
Bali.
The one in Bali.
I saw that one. 2 girls, they had
Yes.
them.
Did you see that?
I saw that.
Did you also see the one that they were they tortured a young man until he died, put chairs on him?
They called him the ambassador general.
Yes, smash his head.
Yes, I saw that.
Did you see? I cannot begin to tell you how many.
My brother.
But let me tell you, Charles, our government with its military might cannot be compared to the population. They came to fight the population.
I'm not making an equivalent.
And when you start assigning blames on both sides, it means that you are blaming the people who want to stay alive.
Yeah.
I think that for somebody coming from the United States, it's a little bit difficult for me, my good friend, to accept that the people who are fighting to defend themselves can be blamed for any excess. They have no excesses because they don't have the means to commit those excesses. No. If you look at all the pictures, the burning of the villages, the ones I just cited a few minutes ago, and so on, those human rights violations are attributable to the state.
Let me be very clear.
Military,
to
the state military machinery. Thank you, sir.
Yes. I'm not equating the state.
Maybe we move forward
to the guys fight because the state has a lot of authority, has a lot of power. I'm not equating both.
Charles Nana,
what I'm saying, excesses have been done on both sides.
Let's move forward. After listening to Amazonian leaders at the U.S. Congress, what next should we expect?
Well, couple of things. I'm sure, although they didn't say they will go into private session, I'm sure some conversation will occur in the private session. If not, there will be a lot of follow-up with the State Department to understand what the ambassador didn't want to say in the open air. And then maybe, again, the U.S. has expressed its interest more on the humanitarian side of it, openly. Because that was the focus of the debate there. So they might begin to condition, just as one of the leaders had requested, And then another question that came up, which is part of the humanitarian aspect, was have all of those, the gifts, the funding that comes to Cameroon have been Leahy vetted. Leahy is a senator, I think he's a former senator, I don't remember, who introduced that bill and it got approved, such that U.S. cannot be giving donations or giving gifts to countries that are using it to abuse human rights. So that's why you hear it kept coming up. Has it been Leahy vetted? Yes. Are there any ways in which those 2 spy planes that were given to Cameroon to fight in the north, are those being used in the northwest and southwest? Then I think when there was a response or someone had asked, troops are being
trained by US
and then somehow
some are transferred to the northwest and southwest.
So again, there'll be a lot of work in the background, but the U.S. openly expressed that we're more interested in the humanitarian aspect of it. That's what the debate was about.
So what will explain that U.S. continue to give gift to a country that is sometimes using the gift, like the ambassador leaders say, to fight its own people?
I think that the part of the Leahy agreement, I don't think Cameroon committed, and I think the ambassador Nwakimo agreed, said Cameroon, as far as they know, Cameroon has not used any of those people trained or those equipment given to Cameroon in the northwest and the southwest region. But that was very clear in the response.
Yes, but one of the speakers mentioned that these troops, when they are trained, they are sent to the far north region of the country. After some time, they are redeployed to the northwest and the southwest of Cameroon.
There is a possibility that is occurring, but at this point, those are just hearsays. And the country like the United States don't act on hearsay. If you heard the ambassador was giving facts, because they send people on the ground, they have hundreds of ways to collect the data, and you get false on false, and then when they screen the data, then they have a real realization of what is happening on the ground. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on those. But again, my brother, I'm not comparing. I hope you don't. If anybody should not misunderstand me, I'm not comparing the government to those that are fighting to defend themselves from excesses committed by the government.
Okay, thank you.
Let me say this. Charles and I were educated in the U.S. Charles is staying in the U.S. I came back home. I know, both of us know how America functions. Let me say this. The American ambassador's reaction to what is going on here and the testimony obtained by the Foreign Relations Committee in the U.S. Congress will be put together, and the U.S. will decide. Yeah. And I'm telling you that if I were this government, I'll be worried.
Very worried.
I'm not going to say any more than that, because what the internal gymnastics between the White House, the State Department, and the Congress, we cannot even predict.
Yeah.
But know America, know the interest, know how to protect their interests. Look, I remember 1997, Charles, when P. Richardson walked into Mobutu's office and told him, your time is up. And B. Richardson reacted just the same way. I mean, the Zaire government reacted just the same way we reacted. Our government here reacted, insulted the U.S. ambassador, some even wanting to put him in a coffin and send him back. You heard all that.
Yep.
America does not take that line down. Americans lost a diplomat, an ambassador in Benghazi. They are not prepared to lose any ambassador anywhere in the world. That statement from that man here, they call Bani Kani or whatever you call him, that statement has been taken very seriously. I have my sources in the US, and I'm telling you that they are analyzing that very seriously, because they don't want what happened in Benghazi to happen in Yaoundé. And to finish, if I were this government, I should be worried. And if Mr. Biya is listening, he should step down, should not contest this election. If he enters this election, it means he really hates this country very much.
Let me just comment on
I will come back to you, Mr. Charles. We are talking about U.S. House of Representatives listening to Anglophone leaders. How is it different from the visit of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, We remember there was a time the Secretary General of the United Nations Organization passed in Yaoundé and discussed those issues. Personalities have come to the country trying to make sure they solve the problem. How is the debate or the listening of the crisis by the U.S. Congress going to create an impact?
Now, it's going to create an impact. I'm analyzing it at the level of international politics. It's going to create an impact in the sense that they will be able to act. There are mechanisms put in place because America does not sit down and hold a meeting for 2 minutes for nothing.
No.
Time is money for them.
Exactly.
If they are holding a meeting and talking between the ambassadors, the White House, and the foreign relations, they are not doing child's play. Now, if you look at Commonwealth and the rest of the people, I said they are all joker organizations. I repeat, they are joker organizations.
They are jokers.
Organizations playing for time, organizations covering things for personal interest. It is true, international policy has good personal interest, but it has a degree under which it goes. Now, Commonwealth came here, blah, 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 blah. What has happened?
Nothing.
Because according to them, they will want to protect these leaders because these leaders contribute to the functioning of those organizations where the various workers are feeding well on it. Now, if you look at Trump has been at the neck of Antonio Guterres because to him, he is saying that he cannot be contributing more when they are not doing what they are supposed to do in terms of bringing about peace. Because Trump does not believe on wait for a problem to escalate before you start asking for funds to take care of the problem. Trump believes that you should be able to prevent a problem from occurring. That is supposed to be the work of the UN.
Yes.
Let me remind listeners that UN and African Union was formed on these basic issues of colonization.
Yes.
If Africa was not colonized and then problems started between the European countries, they were looking for how to partition for peace, to partition African countries in peace. UN would not have come in from the League of Nations, built us up to the United Nations. Therefore, their existence is thanks to the suffering they put us through. I call it suffering they put us through because they are not doing us any good. They are instead draining us to death. That is the more reason why, for the Congress, I am cocksure, and Barrister said something. If we have genuine advisors in this country, they should be able to approach the head of state with genuine analysis. But because some of them are handpicked, and some professors of politics beat by imagination, because this is where they're supposed to come in to showcase the politics they have learned from renowned universities. But instead, they cover up things. And where we are is that they might cause us to enter into doom because they fail to analyze things from a distance. These American movements is not things we should take lightly.
Yes.
Meaning that a good country as we are supposed to be, is supposed to start righting the wrongs and correcting things where they're supposed to be to prevent the unforeseen.
We're a few minutes to the end of the program. You react before we come back to Barrister.
Yes, I'll humbly disagree with my brother here because he seems to believe a lot in professors. Cameroon, we have a lot of professors who are experts in theory, but they have zero hands-on experience. They've caused more harm than good on this within the Anglophone crisis. When the U.S. ambassador came out and made his outing, who were those who went to a media and threatening bodily harm to the ambassador?
The so-called professors. Pseudo-professors and pseudo-journalists.
So they have a role in the society. They have a role in academia, but they have zero experience. So the government should have looked for experts who know how to handle crises, how to resolve conflicts. So my brother, yes, these professors, they know their theory, but they have no experience.
I get you.
And we need people who understand how you resolve conflict. Mm-hmm. So that's the only, I just want to make sure. Because once they threatened the U.S. ambassador with bodily harm, what happened? Over 5 things occurred. Immediately the United States said, Ambassador Sullivan said, Cameroon cannot threaten the United States. Cameroon should focus on fixing the problem.
Exactly.
Nikki Haley went to the United Nations and said the United States will bypass the United Nations in offering humanitarian relief.
Correct.
The British Parliament gave authority for Theresa May to take certain actions. And a lot of things have been moving at a faster pace.
Good.
Why? Our so-called professors went on TV. I don't know what diplomacy or what school they go to, right? And that is the problem. It goes back to the basic. Our standard of education has dropped. That we have people who call themselves professors, but they cannot.
They have nothing to show for it.
And when you ask them, what have you done? Je suis agrégé en. Show me what you've done. Je suis agrégé en. And that is what Cameroon has.
Now, Barrister, let me just find out from you before we run up. We're talking about the U.S. trying to intervene here. If the United Nations organization refused to intervene, what legal powers does the U.S. have to intervene directly into Cameroon affairs?
Oh, the U.S. is a world power, and they have proven it. Well, you heard about the strike that was conducted in is it Syria?
Yeah.
When there was this thing about chemical weapon, the UN had not even debated on it. Trump got his allies, and they dismantled all the structures that were fabricating nuclear chemical weapons. The United States has an interest. When their interest is threatened, they will act with or without the United Nations. Let me tell you, they finance more than 60% of the United Nations.
Yep.
You put where your money is where your mouth is.
Correct.
The United States will react anywhere, anytime, in any part of the world where its interest is protected. And before we finish, because I know you're not going to come to me because we're ending,
yes,
I want to sound this again to to members of the bar, my colleagues, that the defense team of the leaders is still being constituted, and nobody has a right to speak on behalf of that defense right now. And you have a time that we will have somebody that who among the lawyers that will be defending them, they will have somebody that will answer all the questions.
And then the press will really like that. Maybe from time to time should be granting press conferences.
Exactly.
To declare to the public what exactly
is going on.
Thank you very much. Charles Nana, thank you for coming.
I just wanted to end by saying, after the interrogations, I hope the president would declare, would stop all the proceedings and say, let's come to the table, my children, all these excesses, let's be.
That's my hope, Charles.
That's my hope.
Thank you.
My hope is that I'm happy. My hope is that the so-called humanitarian plan should be revisited, because it looks like it's a sham and they're moving towards the wrong direction. Thank you.
Just to mention that the Little region will be joining in on the 2nd of July to contribute their own quota of the humanitarian emergency plan to assist victims of the crisis in the northwest and the southwest of Cameroon. Barrister, thank you once again for coming. You give us an insight of what is happening as far as the case of Ayuk, Tabi, Julius, and others is concerned.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. For all of you, all our technicians who gave us good sound and quality, a good lighting system for us to have a better program today. We are thanking all of you. We thank all of you who watch us. And if you miss out anything, never mind. From 9 p.m. this evening and equally tomorrow, that is Sunday, from midday to 1:30, you have the privilege to watch a rebroadcast of this very edition of the program, Newsroom. I'm Dominic Nwakimo, wishing you a nice weekend.